Right, that started recording.
Excellent. Okay, so welcome everyone to this, the first Housing Repairs online show and share at Newark and Sherwood District Council. In a minute, I'll share with you what we're going to cover today. But first, just a quick reminder of why we do these show and shares. Next slide, please, Kristen. So these show and shares are an opportunity for the team to celebrate what we've achieved, demo any working software, and provide information on progress made so far. But most importantly, it's an opportunity for you, our collaborators and supporters, to give us feedback and ask any questions that you may have. And there'll be an opportunity to do that at the end. Next slide, please. So what we're going to cover today. So in a moment, I'll introduce the core team. I'll share our vision before handing over to Fraser Trickett, who was the product owner on the previous phase. He'll tell you how the product has progressed and also how the live service at City of Lincoln Council is performing. We'll then hand over to Kristen McIntosh, who is the product owner on this phase, who will demo that live service and also share with you what we're going to deliver in this phase. I'll then give a quick recap on what progress we made in this sprint and what our focus will be for the next, before handing back to Kristen, who will tell you how you can engage with this project. And then there'll be an opportunity for you to ask any questions that you may have. Next slide, please. So who is in the core team? Well, we have Kristen McIntosh, who I said is our product owner from Newark and Sherwood. Myself, Paul Clemson, lead delivery manager from Maytech. Dave Richardson, who is the ICT and digital service business manager from Newark and Sherwood. Bhavesh Patel, lead engineer from Maytech. Sonia Lois, who is a digital systems analyst from Newark and Sherwood. Andrew Dobby, who is also a digital systems analyst from Newark and Sherwood. Steve Turner, who is a solutions developer from Newark and Sherwood. Mel Crook, who is our user researcher from Maytech. Mesa Canoni, engineer from Maytech. Mike Knight, who is our interaction designer from Maytech. And finally, Jamie Jordan, senior engineer, Maytech. Next slide, please. So this is our vision, is to design and build a reusable and accessible online repair reporting tool that requires no login and critically residents prefer to use as it meets their needs. A tool that is integratable with various scheduling systems through open, scalable and accessible APIs, enabling the tool we hope to be adopted by local authorities across the UK. Next slide. I'll now hand over to Fraser Trickett.
Cheers, Paul. Good morning, everybody. So just going to run through a quick recap of where we got to in the last phase of the project. Not spend too long on this, but just wanted to kind of hit home some of the points of where we got to in terms of our journey. So the real thing that we wanted to achieve was having that end-to-end experience for customers so that they could book a repair online and pick an appointment slot that was suitable and convenient for them. I'm pleased to say that that was something that we managed to achieve. We went through quite a lot of user research testing during the last phase, testing with different types of customers, different digital literacy skills, different age groups, etc. And based on that, we went through 4 iterations of the project, refining that, simplifying the language in use, taking out unnecessary steps, etc. So we've got a nice clean journey for customers to experience. And as I just mentioned, we've got that integration working to the scheduling system, which was really that key objective of that last phase, so that we could present appointment opportunities for customers to pick. Another really important point that we picked up on was keeping customers informed about what's happening. And to do that, we've used GovNotify, and that's working really well, sending both SMS and email notifications to customers. But we're also using that as a service for our internal staff so that our customer service team get to know about when repairs are logged. The one thing that we really refined through, especially after the user testing, was how we were going to triage the repair selection. And to make that nice and simple for customers, we did away with the traditional SOR language and created a 3-tier triage system that starts off with the room, then a general type of repair, and then it goes down into a bit more detail and they pick actually what that repair type is, and we'll demo that in just a moment. We also managed to think about where we were going with this as a product next, and remembering it was an MVP at this stage, what the kind of functionality would be good. And one of those things we felt that was really important was the ability to amend or cancel a repair, and that's something that will be being built out into full through this phase of beta, but we do have the wireframes already complete with that and had done some initial testing with users. And of course, the real important thing is that we'd completed our theory of change documentation for DLUC, and that's given us some great benchmark data so we can assess the impact of this as a product as it's now launched. And nice little insert at the bottom is our common service pattern. So just for anybody out there that wants to read up on that and the past, if we go to our blog, we can read about those common service pattern steps and get some learning from the discovery phases as well. Next slide, please, Krista. So really pleased to say that this has actually gone live at Lincoln now. Something we managed to do just before I left there. So thanks to everybody who helped to achieve on that. It's been running now for around a month. And so there's a screenshot here of the dashboard that was prepared. So any authority looking to take this on board, it's Power BI. We can share that dashboard with you so that you can start to see the same metrics should you adopt this too. And this is all linking back to that theory of change. So the things that we wanted to measure were how many repairs we're getting in through this as a channel at the time of day and by the location too. So as you can see from that graph at the bottom, it's quite a nice varied spread throughout the day. But the thing that was really important for us is that actually this is now a 24/7 service. And as you can see, 8 o'clock in the evening is quite a popular time for customers to come and log on. I shouldn't say log on, they don't actually have to log in, but they can come and access this as a service and log the repair. And also that pre 7 a.m. is quite a popular time too. It is worth noting that we haven't really promoted this as a service too heavily yet. We wanted to do that on purpose so that it was a soft launch, but also importantly to measure that as we do start to promote it, which are the most effective channels. Rather than shouting about this from everywhere at once, we're taking a stage-by-stage approach to see which of those channels has the most impact on take-up. And we'll be sharing those learnings as and when those are pushed. We've just launched the message on the call waiting queue, so hopefully we'll see that throughout June that we get a slightly bigger uptick in terms of take-up. But we're really pleased that we've had a few hundred repairs logged through this. That isn't including those done by customer services. It's worth shouting out that they have also been using this tool prior to go live in order to help reduce some of the backlog of repairs too. And we haven't had any issues come out from this so far. So that's really good. And at which point I'll hand over to you, Krista.
Right, so next it's me. Just let me switch my screen. Okay, so taking you through the live product as it is at the moment. So this is live on Lincoln's site. So I won't be actually completing this repair, but it's very straightforward. One of the main things we're doing is actually directing people out of the service as quickly as possible where it's not appropriate. So if it's a leaseholder that we currently can't log, or communal area, or if it's an emergency, again, it's just trying to direct people out of the service if it's not appropriate for them and they're not actually going to be able to book their appointment online. So getting those types of calls and types of queries and issues out of the booking process as quickly as possible so they're not wasting their time and are getting the best method to contact us. So again, the top options are all ones where they'd be directed out to say, please contact us, whether it's an emergency or whether it's just a call type that we need to actually we need to talk to them over the phone about. So as you go through, again, it's just redirecting people and making sure that we're clarifying, is it communal area? Because at the moment we're not set up to take communal areas. I'll just put things in by postcode and you can select your property. So very straightforward sort of interface that people are used to. You select your areas. So we've got living areas, bedrooms, bathrooms. Let's go for a kitchen actually this time. And then you've got, this is where, as Fraser was saying, you've got the different levels. So start off at the room level and then move into what sort of type of problem it actually is. If we select cupboards, it then gives you additional detail so that you can actually select what the problem is that's actually happening. And once you've done that, you can provide additional information as to what's happening or what's happening with the actual issue, so that you, actually for your when the appointment is booked, you've got that additional information that can be reviewed, and sort of an additional information asked if it's needed to be. You can also upload photos as well if you choose to. Just put a quick note in there before we move on. So again, it's collecting telephone numbers for if we need to get in touch, as well as actually how to confirm the appointment, which may be with someone else. So we've got that option there, or you can use an email. And at that point, to get through the process as quickly as you can, just taking the information we need, it's then asking you to actually book your repair. You get 5 days worth of slots, and if none of those appointment times are suitable, you can look on to the next 5 days. It does do selection by availability. So if you've got, if you in the background you set up that certain types of repairs can only happen at certain times, it will allow that configuration. So once you select your appointment time, you then get a summary information. And then at this point is where I will stop sharing this, because I'm not actually going to confirm an appointment, because if not, someone's going to get an unwelcome visit. So that's our live service at the moment. And I'll now go back to this one. Okay. So what's next? Well, at the moment, we're already well on track with the first sprint so far. This is just an overview of our indicative project timeline. We're expecting it to extend a little bit once we've got everyone's leave booked in, but we're on track so far. Part of the initial first rounds is going to be have a heavy focus on the actual user research. So actually looking at what people want from it, what works well, what doesn't work well, and understanding how our tenants think, so that we can actually then build that up. That will mainly take place through the first half, and then by that point we'll be looking have the functionality of cancelling and mending appointments to be built in. We'll be proving the ease of replication by integrating the MPV within the Newark and Sherwood DRS and HMS systems. So with the aim, hopefully, that we can go live about midway through, so in about another 8 weeks or so time, but we'll see how that goes. But at the moment we are on track. At the same time, we'll also be starting to build out the support for communal repairs, and the lease. Then after that, looking at the leasehold repairs service, and then hopefully looking at proving replication within other HMS systems. But we're still finalising the partner for that HMS replication stage. So it gives you an idea of where we're going. I'll hand back to Paul now.
Thank you, Kristen. So a quick update on progress made in this sprint. We onboarded the Maytech team, and they now have access to all the various systems. We validated the Newark SOR requirements. We then created the Newark V1 prototype to reflect the live service at the City of Lincoln Council. Subsequently created the V2 prototype, which is the MVP service plus that ability to amend or cancel a repair appointment. We set up CI/CD to enable us to test and deploy code. And finally, we've planned for the first round of user research. Next slide, please. So our focus for the next sprint is to conduct that first round of user research, which will commence this Friday, the 10th of June, and conclude on Monday, the 13th. We'll subsequently refine that Newark prototype to reflect any analysis insights. The engineering team will focus on performing a number of tech spikes, including how we integrate with the Capita housing management system, how we also validate the Newark DRS configuration. So how similar is that to the configuration at Lincoln? And investigate the use of Terraform, which is a way of writing infrastructure code, which enables us to manage both cloud and on-prem resources. And finally, configure SOR codes from service configuration. And what that means, it will make the mapping of the triage information in the service to SOR codes easier. I think I'm now handing back to Kristen, who tell you how you can engage with us.
Yep, so back to me. Really, it's just a case of how to get in contact with us, and say if you've got questions, if you want to know more, please do get in contact with us. have got a website. We've got contact details on there. We're publishing regular blogs on there now, so we will be sharing information, progress, updates, links to the show and shares, as well as any additional information we can, or reach out to us through that. Just as a side note as well, the core team, we are also presenting a digital leaders talk on Monday the 20th of June about the project and some of the key aspects of working and the user journey's influence on the development of the product. So have a look at that. Again, we're sharing links on LinkedIn and other channels. So if you would like to sign up and watch that, it's a whole week of talks that's really quite interesting.
Okay. So now there's an opportunity for you, our collaborators, supporters, to either give us some feedback on what you've seen today, or any other questions that you may have. If you want, you can put your questions in the chat.
So Scott's got his hand up.
So I think we've got sorry, we'll go to Scott first. Scott?
Yeah. Hiya. Yeah, really, the system's working quite well. Really well, to be fair. Is there any discussions about expanding the amount? No, it's the top, so we're kind of using the top 50 SORs. There are some customers through the use. As you can see, we've done about 200 odd now. I've started to see some other repairs coming through on the forms, which they're picking the wrong option for, but predominantly it's kind of guttering stuff that probably we could add in. They are 100-day or longer term priority. So is there any thoughts on expanding the appointments available for customers? So
Yeah, I mean, shall I take that one? So there are plans, and that's after we've completed this phase. So after we've completed this phase, we'll have a fully functional service, and then it will be down to each of the local authorities how they want to customize that service, whether it's an existing customer like Lincoln or any new user part of local authority who wants to use the service. So if you want to integrate what we've built, that can be customized to your needs.
brilliant, thank you.
Okay, we do have a question in the chat from Franco. What happens from customer experience perspective if they select communal area? So at that point, Franco, because the service currently doesn't support communal repairs, they'll go to what we call an exit page, and they'll get provided information on what numbers to call.
Yeah,
Does that answer? Okay.
I did put my hand. Fraser answered that as well. Thank you. I did put my hand up for another question, if I can. If yes. I've got the floor for a second. In terms of the web metrics, so it's good. Great to see it live. I think it's really, looks like a really intuitive product. Do we have any metrics, or is it possible going forward to get metrics on completion rate? So, percentage of customers coming in to the start of a request and repair who successfully complete that. That seems to be a key metric in my head.
I believe we have Wendy Banks on from City of Lincoln. Wendy, can we get that information?
I'm working on that one at the moment, so I'll get back to you, Franco, if that's okay. But it is one of my questions for the team that deal with that, on how we prove and how we can get the stats for that side of things.
Yeah, and it can be a tricky one, but it'd be a very powerful stat, to either to know and to either help improve or just to validate that it really is working. So I'd be very interested if you anything you can share on that. I'd be really interested on that. Thank you.
Okay.
Sure, I'll get back to you.
We also have a hand up from Claire. Claire, do you have a question?
I do. It always helps if I unmute myself first. Obviously, I just wanted to know, obviously, with Lincoln that are currently using it, do we know who's actually reporting the repair? So you don't have to log in. You can provide a number, but do we know if it's the tenant or a family member or friend, or is it just completely anonymous?
I can answer that if you want.
Oh, you answer it, Scott. Yeah, please.
Well, we have we use Universal Housing. We have a database, so 90% of the time the details that the customer provides on the online form will already have on file. So yeah, there's some cross-referencing you can do. So yeah, there'll be the odd one, but no, most of the time. Yeah.
This is the beauty of this, though, because it could be
Yeah.
a carer, it could be a granddaughter,
Yeah.
grandchild. You know, it doesn't have to be the tenant every time. So
Yeah, we
this
don't
is
tend. Sorry, we don't tend to have that sort of data protection thing in terms of repairs. One of the quite often, and they have to enter a postcode, so that would be about as far as we would go in terms of that level of scrutiny on whether it was a customer or not.
I mean, we again will let most people raise repairs on behalf of other people because we want to know about it. I don't know why, but when me and Sonia were first talking about this, in my head I always go, I think, to the most malicious thing where people might be reporting and booking in and tenants may not know about it. And obviously, I'm sure that won't happen.
That tends to be,
Well,
in my experience, that tends to be fencing, because neighbour disputes over fencing, whereas fencing's not on the system yet. So that's the majority of those. I know exactly what you mean. Normally it's fencing disputes.
Okay.
we did have this discussion at the start of when we decided to go on not authenticated, because anyone could call and pretend there was somebody else. You know, it wouldn't stop it from happening. So we didn't see the need to authenticate people for it.
No, and I agree. I think it's good that sort of anybody can just jump on and get it reported and get it booked in. I just wondered if there was kind of, you know, any issues around that, but there will always be something, won't there?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Claire, for that question. We also have Franco. You got your hand up again.
Oh, I think that's an old one. Sorry.
Is it? Okay. Jem Bowen, you've got your hand up.
I think this is going to run and run. It was a major issue when we first started, and I think it's going to be a continuing issue. I think it's absolutely the right position that we've taken as a project. I think data protection is so deep in our psyche now that we even apply it where it's really not appropriate. And I think the advantage of just making it easy for people easily overcomes it's almost like, what's the worst that can happen? Malicious repairs. It's not really a risk, but I'm sure we're going to have to be explaining it constantly for every new site that we attract to the project. But I think we're absolutely doing the right thing.
Thank you, Jem. Stephen, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I was just thinking on the previous question regarding repairs being reported online, who's doing that. I suppose at some point there would be some confirmation, acknowledgement back to that customer anyway, to say we're coming on that date, a text message or something. And I would think hopefully at that point somebody would, at least the customer would say, unfortunately I've not booked a repair, I'm not sure what you're talking about. I think there is other things which can help with that, with that issue of maybe a false call in what we do once we receive that anyway. I would think anyway.
Yeah, that's correct, Steve. We're using GovNotify to send text messages and email to the customer once they've made the appointment, based on the information that they provided at the time of the repair.
Thank you.
Repair request. Caroline.
Just two quickies, really, just to say on the last element, I always think anyway that you have to, work your services around the majority, not the minority. And let's face it, I do believe that most people would not do that. I'm sorry, I just believe that, and our tenants are exactly the same as the rest of the population, and it would be very, very rare, and we can pick it up. The other point I was raising is we will want to be trying to encourage people to use this methodology, and some people will try it and maybe fail and may need some help and assistance. Is there a way to pick those cases out that we might be able to call or help and assist, you know, when the offices are open, to try and help and encourage, because you might get new users coming on trying to use it who aren't so familiar with using technology.
So I can jump in on that a little bit, Caroline. So one of the things that we'll be looking at doing is actually getting the web chat link integrated, so where we actually format it for our own web page. Because we have web chat on our main website, we'll also be putting that web chat option so that they can actually click on it clearly at the top, and that way they've got that direct online assistance that they could ask a question if they are struggling on a page. Obviously that's only during office hours, but it's an improvement on what they otherwise could do, and beyond that then it's going to be a case of actually sort of sharing that knowledge. If you're on the phone, oh, actually, have you tried reporting this online, and actually even sort of helping them and understanding if they have actually sort of on the call whether they have tried it but experienced any issues, so that it can then be fed back to the team and we can look at how we do that. So we can look at things like little videos and other options like that we can always put available on the website to actually help guide people through.
Frequently asked question type thing. And also just to say at the end, you know, if you want to have someone to help you take this through, if you call during office hours, that we will have somebody available, something like that. Yeah. Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, because we'd want to encourage, don't we, as much as possible.
Definitely. Thank you, Caroline. Franco, you got your hand up.
Yeah, just thinking it through, and based on what I said, I obviously love the idea of making it easy, and rather than making people log on through a secure account, etc. But so if I'm, I don't know, somebody's nephew, a tenant's nephew or friend, or just somebody who doesn't live in the property, and I do this on behalf of the tenant, it then asks me for a mobile number. Do I put in my mobile number, and if so, how does that work then in terms of scheduling the appointment? And are we relying on just that whoever completes the request, if they're not a tenant, being in direct contact with the tenant? And I'm just wondering if, based on current experience, and I appreciate it's very early days, has that kind of generated any, I don't know, any issues, any confusion amongst the actual customers? If you follow my drift on that.
Whether it's created confusion, I don't know if we can get some feedback from the folks at Lincoln on the call, whether they've come across that level of confusion.
No, not particularly. We would ring the number that actually quite a few use telephone numbers, so we'll ring the telephone number. If it is the nephew, then we'll discuss it with them. If there's two numbers on the ticket, then I would ring the number that was listed as the person logging the repair rather than the one for the text, probably. But if I couldn't get hold of one, I'd probably try the other, to be honest, and then I'd talk it through with them. But that will only really crop up on those cases where there is some form of misunderstanding about what they're trying to log, that we would try to contact them. Otherwise they've just booked their own appointment anyway. So but no, we haven't experienced any issues there. Like I say, we call for clarification, but that's fine.
That's great to hear, Scott. Does that answer your question, Franco?
Yeah, I think so. And like I say, I appreciate, it may be a minority scenario, but just in my head, that would be a question. If I'm doing this for my gran or whatever, my mum, but I don't live in the property, how does the scheduling work? Okay,
sorry,
if it's not an issue, it's not an issue, because you want people to do it online. Certainly our aspiration will be to, and that's obviously the intent behind making it easy for that to be as fully digitalised a service as possible. So I wasn't necessarily envisaging that there would be an outbound call to people who put in a request to clarify these things. Hoping, my expectation would be that the service would, that would be clear online. So I don't know, I guess I'm partially reassured, but I'm just wondering what happens in that scenario. It may not be a common scenario, in which case it's a non-issue, but I don't know.
Yeah, just going back on that, I would say it's not really. I mean, we're talking about a very minimal amount. I mean, if you think about it'd be exactly the same as doing it over the telephone in that way, but it's a very minimal amount. That most of the reports of repairs are done by by the tenant themselves.
By the
So
tenant.
we're talking small percentages of other people logging repairs. It's not big enough to be a major factor, really.
Thanks.
Okay. Franco, do you have any further questions?
No, I'm good, thanks.
Okay, I saw Jem Bowen with his hand up.
I guess this is one of the compromises, because this is part of a broader piece, isn't it, of improving the way we communicate with residents. And one of the key priorities at Tower Hamlets Homes, where I am at the moment, is improving the percentage of tenants and leaseholders for whom we hold their email addresses and mobile numbers, so that we can improve SMS communication, email communication, move away from paper and print. So we wouldn't be able necessarily to rely on the numbers that are provided here through this channel to update the contact details for our customers. And I guess that is a compromise, and you'd be able to do that more reliably if you did require that they identify themselves at the point of raising the repair. But I think the advantage is, as Jide put in the chat, that one of the biggest deterrents of improving take up for online repairs is this previous requirement to create an account, username, password. I think the advantage of overcoming that probably is, overcomes the issue of completing our contact details for customers.
Okay, thank you, Jem, for that. Fraser, you got your hand up.
Yeah, we just it was pick up on what Jem just said as well. Yeah, I was going to say much of the same, to be honest, but also that as part of that process, when somebody is logging a repair, they are asked for two different numbers in there. One for who do they call if there's an issue around the repair, and the other one is the where do we send the receipt to. So if somebody's logging the repair on behalf of somebody, they should still put really the tenant's number in the who do we call on the day if we've got an issue, unless of course it's for access issues or something like that, and the tenant isn't able to.
Thank you, Fraser, for that. Jide.
Hi, morning, everyone. So I just couldn't help myself. I need to pick up on this point. Jem's laughing. I need to pick up on this point. So there's a wider issue here when it comes to creating an account and usernames and passwords, and it's around the retention of people's personal contact details, and that places an onus and a responsibility on local authorities on how they handle that data and the retention periods for that data as well, which actually brings into play complexities which effectively don't necessarily add value to the process or the service that's being offered here. So I've had experience of online services where people's data has been collected, and then there have to be clear guidelines about communicating that with customers before the inception, before they actually engage with the process, giving them assurances how their data will be handled, and in terms of retention of that data, how long it will be retained for, and if it's not going to be retained beyond a certain period, assurances that that data will be actively disposed of in a way that doesn't bring any kind of harm, loss, or any kind of liability onto the organization. And so just by what I'm saying here, you can understand the complexities that you can actually introduce into a process by asking people to create an account. And I think that, as I've said already, it doesn't add that value. It doesn't encourage take up. So I think that's the way the team has gone with this process. I absolutely support it. I think it's probably the best way.
Thank you, Jide, for that. So I'm just looking at the clock. We've just got a couple of minutes remaining. Are there any further questions or feedback anyone would like to give? Okay, I take silence as a no, but what I'd like to say is thank you for giving up your time today to attend this show and share. And I'm really encouraged by the interaction and the feedback and questions that you've been given today. And hopefully that will continue. So If there's no further questions, we'll end the show and share there, and hope you all have a great day, and we'll see you in 2 weeks' time.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks all.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.